It's Jack's birthday. And for his birthday, as you can probably guess, I wanted to do something special. But birthdays are a funny thing, as are holidays, anniversaries, weddings, any celebratory event. There is an almost pressure to mark them, to do something big and memorable, something grand. A grand day out. When I hear that word, grand, it makes me picture fanciness, something more impressive than the everyday. But sometimes life just doesn't allow you to indulge in such pleasures. The reality is that we are tethered to our responsibilities, our bank accounts, and our schedules. Right now, Jack and I aren't really able to indulge in such things. There's bigger fish to fry. But does that mean that a celebration of grandeur is just not on the cards for us? And then I suddenly thought back to the very first time that I'd really heard that word, grand. And it likely isn't where you'd expect. In 1989, director Nick Park introduced us to a British man and his dog who travelled to the moon to have a grand day out. I remember when I first saw this film and how it struck me. The fanciable thoughts of a moon made out of cheese. And rather than space being a wondrous expanse to explore, it was simply the perfect place for cheese and crackers on a picnic blanket. Space, all of a sudden, wasn't a place for the very wealthy, with a $28 million ticket purchased by Jeff Bezos, Katy Perry and Richard Branson. It was for two companions to go and eat some cheese. Perhaps that's the most fanciable thing of all. And when I was researching the very beauty of that notion, I came across an article by Zoe Kurland entitled Somewhere There's Cheese. In it, she describes the very essence of Wallace and Gromit and why people watch them. Their warm domestic life. It is, as she states, their most enviable feature. Their home is one of warmth and teapots, pattern wallpaper and cosy armchairs. But, as with many, even they long for an adventure, as Wallace pores over his where-to-go book, which suggests ski trips, camping trips, and time well spent away from home. We see his hand resting on a globe, a literal world of possibilities in front of him, whilst the other holds open a handbook called Picnic Guide A to Z, a rather lovely juxtaposition. And, as Zoe says, when Wallace suggests that they go where there's cheese, it's actually a code for something quite wonderful. Let's go on an adventure, but let's never stray too far from home, from what we love. And so, for Jack's birthday, I decided to attempt to recreate that feeling by putting together a traditional picnic of all his favourite foods, and, in true Wallace and Gromit style, take him to the moon. Or the closest thing to it. Even if that meant playing a spot of Tetris to ensure that everything I'd purchased fit into my new picnic basket, which I found at a charity shop. Anyway, off they pop for a cheese-filled adventure in what we recognise as a rocket ship, but is actually more like a caravan, with all the comforts of home coming right along with them, never too far away. A mobile living room, as Zoe describes, with fruit bowls and playing cards. A world away from the tech-centred images that we sometimes have when we think of space travel. Everything shining with chrome. But after laying out their blanket on the moon and Wallace slices off a piece with his butter knife, in the end, they realise that it's just not quite as good as what they've got back home. Although, to me, that cheese always looked the bomb. But I think that's pretty much all childhood cartoon food. And it's at this moment that Zoe asks a very important question. Even on an adventure, or an escape, hurtling through the darkest dark, what grounds you and keeps you feeling a sense of home? In the case of Wallace and Gromit, that grounding force is each other, the life they've created, the cheese that they love. In mine and Jack's case, it's very much the same. It's each other. and the cute vintage elements that we weave into our lives, like this adorable salt and pepper shaker shaped like binoculars. When going far from home, or even not so far, what is it that keeps us from losing ourselves and our sense of things? A picture in a wallet? A favourite sweater? A letter from the one that you love, like the letters from home that soldiers clung to so desperately during World War II? I've said this in a previous podcast, but I truly believe that home is more than a place. It's an inherent feeling, and that to navigate this life, whether on a grand adventure or a turbulent time, you need to hold on to it. It's why I believe that we ourselves can feel like home, by the clothes that we wear, or our home decor, the people that we spend time with, or the guests that we invite over, the music that we listen to, the soundtrack in our home, or even the food that we eat, whether that be Wensleydale or cheddar. Home for me, for example, is the smell of bread toasting under the grill, or the distant sound of my mum blow-drying her hair. It's a sense of feeling. And no matter how grand your life may get, there's nothing quite like it. I mean, there's a reason that Del Boy and Rodney find themselves back in their empty Peckham flat even after becoming millionaires.
Now I've done it, now I've achieved what I wanted. The chase, it's finished. What am I going to do now? Learn to play golf.
Well, you got the trousers for it, at least.
Or why Father Christmas is actually pretty relieved to be home, even after sampling lots of different holiday destinations. It's where everything begins. Life now sometimes feels like it should constantly be bigger and better, aspirational and envy-inducing, with high-profile trips on first-class flights, photographs should be smoother and more filtered, and films should be in 4K. And I think a lot of that comes from the overarching technological advancement that we've seen in recent years. With the exciting developments of AI looming right around the corner, actually they're already here, everything is now at our fingertips, fast and efficient, with more time to live our best lives, and so every facet of our lives should be far more grand. But as Zoe points out, this is the exact opposite reason that many people fell in love with Wallace and Gromit. In contrast to the digital landscape that we've all become accustomed to, their world was texturally intoxicating, fingerprints and all, gloriously imperfect. And so no, Jack and I won't be jetting off to anywhere particularly fabulous for his birthday this year, but we'll be together. And although not quite the moon, this is the highest point around, and still somewhere different, but not too far away. Dorothy said it best, but I've begun to learn that joy isn't necessarily something to find out there, but something that hides in the little things, not in the pressure of scaling up, but in small moments spent doing the things that we love. Moments that aren't perfectly filtered, but authentic, like popping a champagne cork and then spilling it all over ourselves.
Oh God, my dress.
Although adventure is wonderful, I don't want to live a life that I'm constantly trying to escape from, but instead feel happy in my roots and occasionally branch out on trips complete with home comforts and innocent notions. Like perhaps the moon really is made of cheese.